town hall in Fairview, Texas, was packed. Rows of foldable chairs stretched across the room, filled with people eager to hear Karoline Leavitt speak. Some leaned forward, listening intently, while others sat back with arms crossed, waiting for a reason to be impressed or disappointed. The air carried the scent of stale coffee from the refreshment table in the back, and the occasional scrape of a chair leg against the wooden floor punctuated the quiet murmur of conversation. Caroline had been in rooms like this before. Different towns, different faces, but the same energy. Some people came looking for hope. Others came for answers. She was used to the tough questions: policy, leadership, the economy. She had rehearsed answers for all of them, but nothing prepared her for the small voice that suddenly cut through the noise. A little girl, no older than 8, stood near the front. Her brown curls were slightly frizzy from the humid air, and she clutched the hem of her light blue dress, twisting the fabric nervously between her fingers. Her mother stood just behind her, looking surprised that her daughter had spoken up, but not stopping her. "What does God mean to you?" The room fell into silence. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. A few people turned in their seats, their expressions shifting from curiosity to something deeper. Even those who had been scrolling through their phones moments earlier now glanced up, waiting. Caroline had been shaking hands, smiling, making her way through the crowd with practiced ease. Now she froze. Her fingers, still extended from the last handshake, curled into a loose fist at her side. This wasn't a policy question. It wasn't about polls or party lines. It was something else entirely. She could feel the weight of the room pressing in. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, but it was heavy, expectant. For the first time in a long time, Caroline didn't have an immediate answer. She lowered herself to the girl's level, bending her knees until their eyes met. The child's expression was open, searching, not in the way adults ask questions, fishing for contradictions or trying to prove a point, but with genuine curiosity. Caroline took a slow breath. "That's a really important question," she said, buying herself a few more seconds. The little girl didn't blink. She simply waited. Caroline thought back. Back to the nights she spent staring at the ceiling, whispering prayers into the dark, hoping someone, anyone, was listening. She thought about the moments when faith felt easy and the ones where it slipped through her fingers like sand. She could give a polished, rehearsed answer, something clean, something safe, but she didn't want to. Not here. Not to a little girl who had the courage to ask something so simple yet so profound. Caroline parted her lips to speak, but the words caught in her throat. Memories flooded her mind, memories she hadn't planned on sharing tonight. But before she could push them away, something shifted inside her, a feeling so raw and sudden it almost made her gasp. She clenched her hands into fists to steady herself. She looked at the girl again, and this time, her vision blurred slightly, not from the bright overhead lights, but from something deeper. She swallowed hard. "What does God mean to me?" she repeated, as if saying it out loud would help untangle the knot in her chest. The expected answers flashed through her mind. God is love. God is hope. God is everything. True, maybe, but those words felt hollow, too clean, too easy. She thought about the nights she spent sitting beside a hospital bed, gripping the frail hand of someone who had once been strong. She thought about the whispered prayers that went unanswered, the days when faith felt like an anchor, and the days when it felt like a burden. She thought about her own childhood, when believing was simple, before the world became complicated. Finally, she found her voice. It was quieter than before. "To me, God is the reason I'm still standing here." A murmur rippled through the crowd, faint but unmistakable. A man in the second row uncrossed his arms. A woman near the back lowered her phone slightly, though she was still recording. But Caroline wasn't finished. She thought about the night that changed everything, the night she almost gave up. "When I was 19, she began, her throat tightening, "I lost someone I loved more than anything in the world." The room, already quiet, became impossibly still. The little girl's expression didn't change, but her grip on her dress loosened slightly. Caroline's fingers found the edge of her blazer, smoothing over the fabric as if grounding herself in the present. But her mind was elsewhere, back to a stormy night, headlights cutting through the rain, sirens wailing in the distance. She had prayed so hard that night, begged, pleaded, "Please, God, don't take him. I'll do anything. Just don't take him." But the monitors had gone flat, and nothing had brought them back. For years she didn't pray, didn't believe, told herself that if God was real, he wouldn't have let it happen. And yet, something had changed. Not all at once, not in some grand revelation, but in small moments. The neighbor who left home-cooked meals at their door, even when they stopped answering. The friend who sat with her in silence when she had nothing left to say. The stranger who paid for her coffee when she'd forgotten her wallet. Little by little, she had started to see it. God wasn't in the things she had lost. He was in the hands that reached for her when she thought she was drowning. She blinked, bringing herself back to the present, to the faces watching her, waiting. "For a long time I thought God had abandoned me," she admitted. "But the truth is, he was the reason I survived it." A heavy exhale swept through the crowd, as if they had all been holding something in. The little girl finally spoke again. "So, God doesn't fix everything?" Karoline's chest tightened at the honesty in her voice. She shook her head. "Number he doesn't." The girl frowned slightly, thinking. "Then what does he do?" Before Karoline could answer, an older woman near the back let out a quiet, shuddering breath. Heads turned toward her. She clutched a crumpled tissue in her hand, pressing it to her lips. Her voice wavered when she spoke. "He doesn't fix everything," she said, repeating the girl's words. She let out a soft, almost bitter laugh. "No, he doesn't." Her gaze lifted, meeting Karoline's. "But sometimes he holds us together when we should be breaking." No one moved. No one spoke. Karoline swallowed hard. Then she nodded. "Yeah," she said softly. "That's exactly what I meant.